Hello and welcome to the second season of the Game Design Podcast. Once again, my name is Brad Carney of Final Boss Entertainment, and we've been on a bit of a hiatus over the past few months. When we did our two-part episode talking about our game Rack a while back, it seemed like a good ending point for the first season, and take a bit of a break and recharge our batteries. Maybe that wasn't totally intentional, and maybe I got carried away with Heroes of the Storm, but we're back with some great game design topics to discuss. Now that we're back with a second season, I want to make this one an improvement over the first. For one, I've got some fancy new sound equipment, so the podcast should sound better than ever. If you're a hopeless audiophile like me, I know you're excited. Second, I'm going to dedicate myself to a new episode each week. The release schedule was too lax last season, and I don't think that helped the show. Finally, I want better, more natural conversations, more guests that are friends of the show with a broader pool of topics to discuss. Bringing out a big-time game designer and then limiting the conversation to just awesome NOS level design? Does that game even have levels? No idea. It's probably not the best way to go about doing things. I'm even thinking about streaming the podcast live. We'll see. Anyway, very much looking forward to Season 2. Alright, so on to today's topic. Fitting right in with the podcast being back, we're talking about comeback mechanics. Basically, in any sort of competitive game, these are mechanics that favor the player or team that's losing. It's a way of keeping the match exciting and preventing those who are ahead from resting on their laurels. If there's hope that the losing team can make a comeback, it keeps everyone invested. The losing team has a good reason to play hard, and the winning team has to keep their guard up, and the outcome isn't assured for anyone watching. I think a great example of this is the revenge meter in Street Fighter 4. In that game, every fighter has an Ultra, which is a very flashy and powerful move, and successfully landing one is often key to winning. However, the only way to power up your revenge meter and use an Ultra is by taking damage. In other words, the player who's more behind has more revenge meter at their disposal, and therefore a more powerful Ultra to use for their comeback. You've got to be careful though to strike a delicate balance. If comeback mechanics are too weak, players can feel like the game is over before it actually is. If they're too strong, it can be frustrating for the better players. If comeback mechanics give momentum to the losing team, so they not only even things up, but surge ahead, that can be a problem. In a previous life when I played Marvel vs. Capcom 3, this was something you'd often see with the X Factor mechanic. This mechanic that you could activate once per match would provide a speed and damage increase based on how many characters on your 3-man roster were dead. Oftentimes, we'd see a lone anchor rip through a full 3-man team using X Factor before the other player could even get their bearings. Was it favorable to be down your last character in the game? Probably not, but there were times where it seemed a bit unfair. Kind of the opposite of the comeback mechanic is the snowball mechanic, a rich get richer situation. Once a player or team sees an advantage, these mechanics make it very difficult for the opponent to stay competitive. They make games boring and largely decided from the beginning. I don't recommend them. No need to name any examples here, but they exist. They definitely exist. So coming up, we'll be talking to friend of the show, Andrew Roznovsky, about some of these comeback mechanics and some other things. We'll get into a bunch of different topics. But after that, I'll be back at the end to wrap things up. So why don't we start off by talking about basically the main reason this podcast has not been around for a while, the fact that you got me into a little game called Heroes of the Storm. Yes. We talked about it a little bit, I think, on one of the last episodes where I hadn't played it yet, but you were telling me about it. Why don't we explain to the people at home a little bit more about this game and why maybe it's so addictive and why it's made it difficult for me to get some work done, and just kind of what makes the game so great and fun and what it is and all that stuff.
Sure, yeah, that works. Basically, what it is Blizzard markets it, if you look on their website, as a hero brawler, but that's just a fancy Blizzard term for calling it a MOBA.
It's a MOBA, yeah. I've never heard anyone refer to it as a hero brawler. Yeah,
no, only the Lost Vikings in the game refer to it as that. But,
yeah, and like they're official Blizzard employees, so they have to refer to it that way.
Exactly, yeah. So, if you've heard of League of Legends or Dota 2, it's basically Blizzard's take on that. And it's 5v5 on a map, and it's very addicting. You can ask either one of us. So,
and if anyone doubts that it's Blizzard's take on Dota, for a while it was literally called Blizzard Dota internally. So
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, but yeah, it's
ironic, but yeah.
Yeah. Considering we don't need to go into the whole history, but they originated the game, the kind of where it all came from, and then Valve made their own version. They're trying to take it back, but anyway. But yeah, it's yeah, but it is a 5-on-5 multiplayer game and very addictive. Probably gonna have to do an episode on gamification and at some point probably a whole lot to get into there. But they do use all these techniques to basically get you to play, even though maybe you don't necessarily want to. It's like first just as like a small first. It's like if you're about to level up, I know that's something they've researched and are well aware of. But people are more likely to play, so they can grind up to reaching that next level, reaching that next milestone, and they feel compelled to, and they're playing for reasons other than, hey, it's fun. So
yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, they've made it quite the addictive game, and Blizzard has a history of doing that, so they're pretty good.
I think anyone who's familiar with World of Warcraft and knows all the people who have basically just gone into that black hole, never to return alive. Hopefully alive, but just get sucked into that world and had it be fairly impactful on their lives. I think we probably all know people who've gotten addicted to WoW, and that's the end of their social life. Or
everybody knows somebody who is into WoW at one point. So
yeah,
no
but
doubt.
So I mean, basically, you got me into this game for a while, and I kind of like I said in the intro, the last episode we did, it did kind of seem like a good point to kind of call that the season finale and take a little break, but maybe didn't intend for it to be this long of a break, so.
Yeah.
But enough is enough, and time to get back in the wagon. It's time to start giving people content that
season 2.
Exactly. But so one of the things that is in this game, and kind of the main thing I wanted to talk to you today about is comeback mechanics. Basically these are mechanics that keep the game interesting. Just when you think you have the outcome all figured out, suddenly whoever's losing, they manage to make a comeback, and sometimes there's little mechanics that help out with that. And I know Heroes of the Storm certainly has its fair share of those.
Oh yeah, it really does. It's a little bit less obvious, I think, than other games and other genres, which we can discuss. But
yeah.
It's definitely present. Yeah. Comeback mechanics, ever since people became aware of them and stuff, they're very divisive. So, basically the better / more top gamer you are at the particular game, the more you probably hate them.
Yeah, then, right.
But for the viewers at home, especially for esports and stuff like that, it's a good way of keeping casual people's interest.
But that's an important point to go back to, and that's something I've noticed as well. Usually, like the better players, the top players, are really not fans of these mechanics because usually they're the ones who are ahead. They have a lead. They don't want to give the other player a chance to come back and be back into it. They want to, once they're ahead, they want to stay ahead and get even more ahead. They want the game to snowball, which is something we'll talk about a little later on.
Exactly. Yeah. No question. And having you and I have been in competitive gaming for a while, I see both sides of it. So, but yeah. I mean, for the viewer and everything, for the casual stuff, it makes things way more interesting. So,
I
understand that. Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, just think about like anytime you're watching like a sporting event or any kind of game. If someone were to get off to an early lead and that lead would be compounded, that would more than likely lead to them getting more ahead. I mean, what's the point in continuing to watch? I mean, the outcome's decided. It's no longer exciting. It might only be exciting in that very beginning part where where things are a little still up in the air. But once that ball gets rolling, if there's no way to stop that, you kind of lose interest in things. It really doesn't kind of ceases being interesting at that point.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it doesn't matter, regardless of, trying to pull in the casual audience is nothing new to esports or anything else. It's been around since the dawn of time. So, if people don't think there's much of a actual competition, people are not going to be very interested in it. Just kind of like, oh well, yeah, that's going to go that way. If there's no chance of an upset, or the chances of an upset are extremely low, then people aren't going to pay attention, and it's not going to last very long. So, you kind of, and on the flip side of that, we kind of discussed a few minutes ago about, when you're in the competitive mindset, you're in the middle of this competitive stuff, and when you're in the lead, you don't really care for these comeback mechanics. But on the flip side, when you're losing, you love comeback mechanics because it can help you, turn the tide and stuff. So it makes it, excuse me, it makes it interesting too from that competitive side, because you always know, hey, I'm losing right now, but if I can, angle this combo, if it's a fighting game or something like that, that if you get in a situation where the comeback mechanic can help you, it can really, sway the outcome of a match. And, it's very good if you're trying to, go in a tournament or something. It's like, well, thank goodness that's available.
Yeah, so, it gives you something a reason to keep your head up. It gives you a reason to be hopeful, and always reason to hang in there. I'm glad you brought up the competitive side of it. So I mean, you were mentioning a little bit like the person who's on the losing end of it. I also think these mechanics can be kind of good for people who are on the winning side. So, I mean, sure, sometimes people whine. They don't think, oh, these people shouldn't be able to come back, blah, blah, blah. But I think deep down, maybe they do kind of like these mechanics just a little bit, because it does kind of force you to stay on your toes and stay on edge. So if these comebacks didn't exist, once you go off to a lead, who cares? They're not going to come back. You'll probably be more inclined to take your foot off the... if I can speak English, you'll probably be more inclined to take your foot off the pedal, and the game can kind of get boring at that point, and you're probably not having as much fun as you otherwise would if there wasn't just this little bit of a threat of a comeback.
Yeah. I mean, it keeps you, you got to keep your competitive edge more. You got to keep, focused, like you said, because I mean, if you can just autopilot, eventually, if someone's so dominant at a game or something like that, there's like, well, yeah, I'm done here. There's nothing for me to prove, and go on to something else.
Yeah.
It does, it's one of those things where it's subtle or subconscious, that I'm sure, when you're in the middle of it, it's like, man, I can't believe that, I just got hit by this random thing and I lost the match because of it and stuff. But yeah, I mean, ideally, in the back of your mind, it does force you to stay on your game more often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we can all agree. Winning is fun. Autopilot, probably not as much.
Right. Yeah.
So why don't we go ahead and talk a little bit about some specific examples of comeback mechanics? I think a lot of people at this point are familiar with fighting games, especially with Evo now going to take place at a giant arena in Vegas. What is it? The Caesars, or what is it?
The finals is at the Mandalay Bay Arena.
Mandalay Bay. Evo has arrived, ladies and gentlemen.
12,000 seats.
Oh, geez, that's gonna be nuts. You're going to that, right?
Yeah, I'm planning on. So should be pretty good.
Okay. I haven't officially decided no yet, but I don't know. After last time, we don't need to go into what happened to me last time I went.
Nor there. Yeah.
Let's just say it was not $1,000 well spent. Anyway, but I think a lot of people are familiar with fighting games, so they're probably familiar with Street Fighter and those a lot of the way like some of the mechanics work in these games. Why don't we talk a little bit about the big comeback mechanic in Street Fighter 4, the revenge meter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what they decided to do pretty early on in Street Fighter 4 development was they were like, hey, we kind of need because if you look at some of the older Street Fighter games, it was very there wasn't really a comeback mechanic, that would be immediately obvious. So they decided to do what's called a revenge meter, and basically the whole premise behind that is as you lose, as you take damage and everything, your health bar goes down. This revenge meter goes up, and then when the revenge meter hits 50% of its total capacity, it would start flashing, and then you would have access to a move called an ultra move in that game, and basically it was a move only available to you if your revenge gauge was high enough, like I said before, and it was a very high damaging. It was the single highest damage move that character had. So basically, if you can just imagine it, you start the round, you're losing. Oh, you're down to like, oh man, this guy has like, 40% more health than me. And then you get this, and then you land it in a combo or something. You can completely turn the tide of the match. Just because it's like, hey, I'm losing. Oh, I hit this, I'm winning now. Stuff like that. And then on the flip side, that guy, now he's got access to it, so it flips back and forth. So it was a method they used to try to have kind of momentum shifts during a round,
which makes the game exciting when you have these kind of this kind of back and forth seesaw effect with who's winning, who's losing. I do think it's important to point out that the strength of this ultra, it is dependent on how much damage you've taken. So it's like the further behind you get, the more powered up this bar gets, and so basically the more you're losing, the more potential you have to come back and make things exciting. So
yep. And one of the a method that they did is, if you look at most fighting games, you have typically everyone, like you said, you're familiar enough with Street Fighter 4 probably by now, especially by listening to this podcast. If you there's rounds.
We need to broaden our pool of games, I think.
Yeah, so we can talk about Street Fighter 5. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, there we go.
But no, if you look, there's a super bar down below that that carries over per round. But what the developers decided to do with the revenge gauge to incentivize you to use it was that they only made it a per round basis. So let's say if you lost round 1 with a full revenge gauge, you would start round 2 with an empty gauge again. So they're incentivizing you to use it per round. Say, hey, you got to use, it's only a per round basis thing. It's not a match basis thing. So,
right.
They wanted these big swings, like you were saying.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. And I definitely think mission accomplished on that. It's those ultras, they are very flashy, exciting moves. When they do go off, usually the crowd gets hype, and I very much enjoy seeing these flashy momentum changing moves, and so it's good that they're incentivizing those to be used more often.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and it was a big change from the way Street Fighter had been played before. So it took some getting used to, and eventually the meta and everything adapted around it. But yeah, it was pretty interesting from the get-go. The
meta. Are you bringing terms from Heroes of the Storm into Street Fighter?
Hey, I just want to say that I've heard Street Fighter players say the meta. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not just me. But yes, I'm thinking of it.
It's boiling over into other
just
genres.
Spilling over.
Yeah. There you go. That's more apt. Did that all originate with Dota and League anyway? Like the meta.
Yeah, it did.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Anyway. But yeah, I know some of. You're probably more familiar with some of the specific individual Street Fighter matches, but just having like this mechanic has definitely like resulted in like many just like huge swings of momentum, just like giant comebacks in the game. It's made it one of the more exciting Street Fighter games.
Yeah, to watch at least.
Yeah, right.
Play not so much, but that's it's a different topic.
Well,
but yes,
it's probably better than Street Fighter 3, probably. So
yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
Probably better than Alpha. So
yeah, exactly. It's different strokes for different folks on Street Fighter.
Yeah. No, I mean, one thing that I did think of while you were talking about that was like Street Fighter 2, and like that game really doesn't have much in terms of comeback mechanics, but then again, like the damage is so high in that game, like you almost don't need them. It's almost like one landed combo is its own comeback mechanic. It
actually has like an early implementation, at least Super Turbo does, of a comeback mechanic. So I didn't know this until you asked me about this topic, and I started doing some research, and it explains quite a bit of stuff about that game to me. But so the way damage works in Super Turbo, which is the last iteration of Street Fighter 2, there's like 9,000 versions of it. That is the
over 9,000. Anyway, sorry, continue.
Game's 22 years old, if you can believe that. But anyway,
I can't.
So what happens is there's a you know, there's a scale's worth of damage, right? So basically everything in that game, I don't remember the exact number of points you have for a health bar. It's not 100. That would make sense. Capcom doesn't do stuff like that, at least back then. So it was like from 22 to 26, right? Points of damage a move could do, right? And it was a sliding scale. So quite literally, you could do a dragon punch, Ryu's signature uppercut move. You could do it once. It could do 25 damage. You could do it again. It hit him. It only do 22, right? Like there was an inherent randomness to the damage in that game.
Good job, Capcom. Anyway.
It would explain why things are silly in that game. Okay, well, anyway, what they did was they implemented an algorithm that said that, okay, if you lose a round, then the chances of you getting higher damage are greater. They just cut off the lower band, right? So I said it was 22 to 26 normally. You'd only really be oscillating between 24 and 26 damage, and that also worked for stuns too. So if you can go, no one's going to do this, but if you really wanted to, you can go and play a match. You win a round, and then the loser of round one will be able to stun and do more damage to the winner of round one and round two. It doesn't make any sense, but that's what they decided to do. So it's like, okay, so what that does is that actually opens up like touch of death combos, which are basically like you hit the opponent once and you can do 100% combo. They can't do anything about it. So there's actually touch of death combos in Super Turbo that you can only do if you lost the first round, and it only works like 60% of the time because you don't know. It's like everything has to scale, right? It's just like,
and you also have to be standing on your head, and the moon has to be full. And
it's like, what a great game. So yeah, there's plenty of randomness in that game. But okay, so there's that in Super Turbo, and also too, Super Turbo is the first Street Fighter game that had the super moves that everyone knows now. And if you look back, the fighting game community saw the super moves actually as a comeback mechanic and hated it. So it's funny now that like super moves are so pervasive in fighting games, and then the original implementation in the Street Fighter, everyone was just like, oh my god, these are so scrubby, which is bad. And it's just like, oh, this is so I just find it funny that it was frowned upon then, and now everyone it's not even a thing. It's just so pervasive now. So
yeah, and I think probably part of that is people like them. They're flashy, so
yeah, and
they're going to be more forgiving of these flashy, exciting, cool things.
We've probably people probably died hearing the Street Fighter 2 discussion, but it's a great game. At least everyone's probably played it before, so at some point. So
it's
a reference.
Yeah, I think especially people in the fighting game community. Although I don't know how available is it still. I don't.
ST is pretty available.
Okay. Yeah, I guess there's a remix that's on
360, PS3 and stuff.
Yeah, is it available on PS4 and the Xbone?
No.
Yeah.
I don't know if anything's available on the Xbone.
Yeah.
Besides Killer Instinct. So.
Well, that's a big win, but
soon to be coming to Windows 10. So.
Is it really?
It's a free plug for Iron Galaxy, I think. Yeah. Anyway, yes.
Isn't Iron Galaxy the Skullgirls people?
That is not them. It's something else.
Okay, whatever.
We've swirled quite a bit.
Yeah,
all the 9 fighting game people are probably dead by now.
I know they all tuned out long ago. It's fine. But we'll make it all good. We'll bring it back right now.
Yes,
let's talk about some non-fighting games. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So.
Exactly.
Anyway, this is another fighting game, but we'll get to some non-fighting games shortly. But no, it's to me this is like this is like the most overt example of like a comeback mechanic. So this game, it's a 3-on-3 fighting game. So it's like you kill one character, the second one comes in. Kill the second, the third comes in. If you kill off the third, then you win. Congratulations, KO. But this has basically like a power up you can activate at any time, and like the strength of it depends on how many fighters are dead on your team. So basically, like the more you're behind, the more powerful this becomes, and so when it's looking like the match is snowballing against you, you pop that and. at an opportune time, and can make an absolutely giant comeback.
Yeah, this is this is like the team who developed Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is a separate team that did Street Fighter 4, and it's like the team that did Marvel 3 looked at that and it's like, that revenge gauge stuff looks pretty cool. Now let's take it up 3 orders of magnitude, and then you get what's called X Factor, is what Brad's talking about. It's extremely open ended.
And it is magnitudes more powerful than
it is
revenge meter. It is disgustingly, like when we get to the point where we're starting to talk about how maybe it's bad if these comic mechanics are too overpowered. This will definitely be.
I agree. It's
example number 1.
It makes, basically the nice thing about it, I'll say in its defense, it basically makes almost any 2 matches of Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 different. It's crazy.
That is true.
It's very all over the place. So,
yeah, but this is just like one of the more powerful, probably the most powerful comeback mechanic I've ever seen in a game. It's not uncommon for. Okay, let's put it this way. Like when this happens, like people like barely blink an eye. You will have matches where you kill off the first character, you kill off the second character, almost kill off the third character without taking any damage. Like the match is like basically over at that point. No, the other person pops X Factor, rips through the first character, rips through the second character, rips through the third character, like before like you even know what happened. It's just like, I had this in the bag. How did this happen? What? Before you can compose yourself, before anything, like the match is already over. Like it leads to like that much, like such a high degree of momentum that it's insane.
The best way I can describe it is basically, take what Brad said. I can summarize it into this. It's probably still, the game is pretty much dead competitively, but it's still to this day a very powerful tactic to construct a team, to have your last character be amazing at X Factor and have that be a viable topic. It's like, okay, no matter whatever the first 2 characters do is just gravy. Right. This guy will clean all, just make a 3 character comeback, no problem. So
yeah.
You're relying solely on the fact that your first 2 characters may not do anything, and you'll probably still win the game. Right. So it's
it happens.
There's a lot of people who have a problem with it, I might add.
Yeah, it happens regularly in the game, and it's just
it's to a casual observer like, wow, that's really impressive, but after playing it for a while, it's just like, it happens.
yeah. To us, it's just like, yep. Especially if you're just on the receiving end of it. It's just
Marvel 3,
Yep, that's Marvel. That's Marvel happening. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah. So these comeback mechanics. Going back to X Factor. Mm-hmm. If they feel like too powerful, like to the point where like it almost incentivizes you to be behind.
Yes.
Like then I think that's when like you've gone too far. These mechanics are too powerful, and I think you can definitely make a case for that with X Factor, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's. I think if there's one comeback mechanic where you're like, is this it's just like right on that edge. It's like this is maybe a little bit too good.
Yeah.
It's just and.
It's like the old Star Wars line, like, strike me down and I will become more powerful than you could possibly imagine.
Right. It adds a lot of intrigue to the game.
Oh, definitely.
Don't get me wrong, but yeah, there's there's times where, if a comeback mechanic's too strong, then, basically just what you said, it's like, well, you're incentivizing less doing well and just getting hit early, losing.
Right.
Okay, wow, got access to my nuke, I won.
Yeah.
Why am I even playing this game? Right.
It's de-emphasizing the importance of the early game. So
yeah, it is.
There you go. There's some more MOBA terminology for you, but anyway.
Or StarCraft. But
yeah.
I digress.
Yeah. But yeah, it's something where it's like you definitely have to be careful that the mechanic isn't too powerful, but at the same time, it's if it's too weak, then
there's not much of a point, right?
Then matches feel hopeless, and the mechanic doesn't even feel like it's there, and Yeah, it's rough.
It is. Yeah. I mean, you can kind of go back to the, loosely, you can kind of go back to the super turbo thing I was telling about. It's just like, oh, well, great. I
Right,
have
yeah.
access to this more damage and more stun opportunity, but I have zero control of when it happens. And, you know, like it's just so random. It doesn't help, right? You can't count on it. Whereas the
Right.
X Factor is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. You can
Right.
control it anytime you want and access it, even if you're winning, which is, I think, to me, that's the thing about X Factor, right? It's like with the revenge stuff in Street Fighter 4, you could theoretically gain it while you're winning, but it's very difficult.
Right.
And that is with a specific mechanic, and it would be difficult in Street Fighter. Super Turbo example I used, you had to be losing, but with X Factor, you could be winning and then say, "I want to win more," and do it. Right? It's
Finish
ridiculous. Yeah, it's just like golly, all I can think about is Heroes of the Storm terms. The win more. It's just like, yeah, I want to win more now. Right? So
yeah,
it's X Factor. I think it's fair to say it broke a lot of hearts. There's a lot of people who are very bitter about that to this day.
Yeah, yeah. But here's what I will defend X Factor, because I mean there are a couple more points that I do want to make about this mechanic. Okay, the Street Fighter 1 I don't like so much because especially the Street Fighter 2 one, where it's like, oh, after you've lost a round, you're just automatically stronger. That seems a little hokey to me. It doesn't seem like it's like rewarding. It's just kind of like, okay, you're losing, let's just automatically make you better. Whereas like a revenge mechanic, you still have to control like when you want to bust that out, when you want to use it. With X Factor, you still have to choose a good time to activate it, and make your move. So
yeah,
it's not one of those things where it's like, oh well, you're losing, so let's just fudge some numbers here a little bit. Let's just automatically wave a magic wand and automatically give you more power for the next round. That kind of seems like cheating to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head too, because that's the only game Capcom ever did that. Then they're like, yeah, this is dumb, and they never did it in any other game after that. So,
good job, Capcom. Good job.
They're like, this doesn't.
A non-sarcastic good job, Capcom.
They're like, hey, let's add custom combos. Anyway, that's a whole separate discussion. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there comes a point where it's just like artificially just silly, right?
Right.
Like, oh, well, yeah, sorry you lost. You're 50 times more powerful than the other guy. It's just like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Why not?
And I think Heroes of the Storm does it well too. So like for people who aren't totally familiar with like MOB mechanics, there's usually like a leveling system in the game. So it's like you can kill enemy players or like little creeps that run around and basically get experience and level your entire team up. Which gives you like more talents and more stats. So it's like you have more health, your characters do more damage, and potentially have more abilities if you reach certain key levels. So I mean, basically, so you get experience when you kill heroes in this game. You get more experience, actually far more experience, if you kill heroes when you are down levels. So if they're more powerful and everything than you, and like to me, that's actually a great thing. Like it's not really like a comeback mechanic, but you're being rewarded more for doing something that's actually more difficult. If you're killing someone who is a higher level than you, that's far more challenging than killing someone when they're an even level with you, or even when they're a lower level than you. So it makes sense that the reward would be higher. Mm-hmm. And it just so happens to get you back into the game too, and make the game more interesting and exciting.
Yeah, there's a lot of individual mechanics in Heroes of the Storm that kind of the most obvious example is what Brad just said, right? Hey, you actually gain more experience if you kill a hero, then you're down more than if you're up ahead or same level, right? And that's nice. And I remember when I read that, I was like, wow, is that true? And I was like, oh my god, yeah, it's amazing. But no, something
we should stop dying when we're ahead. We should be careful.
But, something that is built into the game, and it's not really, I'm not going to say it's a comeback mechanic, but it's a momentum mechanic. Let's say I'm sure you'll agree with this, but basically, like like Brad said, you level up during the game. You start at level 1, right? And then you can die, right? And you always respawn, but if you die early, you respawn quicker. So the later the higher the levels go, the longer the respawn timer takes. So you can conceivably, have what's called a team wipe, right? Which is you have a team of 5, all 5 of your guys die, right? Well, the later, and it makes sense, the later you go on a game, the longer the respawn timer is. So the more important it is not to die. And, if you're down, if you're down a level or two and you manage to pick off 2 or 3 of their guys and their respawn timers are a minute, you can go and win the game really easy because they can't, it's a 5-on-2 situation.
Right. 2
guys a level up on 5. It's not a big enough level advantage, right? Mm-hmm. So the respawn timer is like it's more like a momentum, right? Like it evens out because
right.
Like if you're skilled enough, yeah, you might have a bad game, but if you're skilled enough and you're good at, micro mechanics of the game, you can go win a team fight later on. Yeah, you might be down a level or 2, but hey, you can still go win the game, right? Mm-hmm. So, the most obvious comeback mechanic in Heroes is you get more experience as they go lower, but even at the end, it's everything kind of evens out then at that point. I feel like Heroes is like there's kind of like a curve because once you get 20 on, it's level 20 on, it's just kind of all the same really,
pretty much.
But there's different parts of the game where it's very, oh my god, like you've got to make a huge play,
mm-hmm.
and the problem is when I talk to my friends and everything, it's it's just like this. It's like Heroes is so situational. Like I'd have to spend 5 minutes outlining a very detailed situation to get to a point I want to make. So it's very difficult. But yes, there's a lot of comeback mechanics in Heroes. It's a great game. Everyone should go play it. It's free to play. Blizzard, I demand a check in the mail because I got this guy playing it. I want some retribution. I want something.
They've made plenty of money off of me, except they really haven't because I don't spend too much on the game.
You're a free to play master.
I'm a free to play master. Yeah, I'm a grinder. But
nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, some of the skins still look cool though, and I never have the new heroes when they come out. I don't have Zool. Why don't I have Zool? He's so cool. Anyway,
he's cool.
He is. He's very cool. For those who don't know, he's a necromancer. He's from Diablo 2. He's really cool. Oh, Bone Prison, so good. Anyway, but yeah, I do agree with you. Like the death times, it is like a big momentum thing, but it is also like a comeback mechanic too.
So it's. Way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's if you're behind and you kill them and they stay dead longer, that gives you more time to catch up. It's like you have an advantage for more time than the other team does. So, you can build some. You can come back from that. Yeah, it's momentum. It's you can kind of snowball that advantage a little bit.
Yeah,
and then they come up angry and they're alive again and they come after you.
True.
But yeah, so I mean, definitely kudos to Blizzard and their comeback mechanics in that game. But yeah, I did want to discuss real quick some not in real life examples, but some like sports examples of comeback mechanics. I definitely had a couple. The one I did want to mention was football, the onside kick.
Yeah.
So I think probably a lot of people are familiar with football, although maybe not. We should probably explain it, but basically, can't really explain football. It's too weird. Like that's why it hasn't caught on in the rest of the world. Like it's too complicated to explain. It's like, okay, there's 4 downs and you got to get 10 yards.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, the brief version is basically when you like anytime you score a touchdown or like score some kind of point, you kick the ball to the opposing team. So like it's their turn. Which is kind of a comeback mechanic on its own, or at the very least preventing snowballing. So you kick the ball to the other team. So usually you have like the other team lines up like way on the other side of the field, and you kick the ball all the way to them. However, if you only kick the ball like a certain distance, like 50 yards or whatever it is, or past the 50-yard line, I don't know, whatever.
It's 10
don't
yards.
Quote me.
It's 10 yards.
10 yards. There you go. Then basically it's a free it's like a toss up basically. So as long as you kick it that far, like you can field the ball. So it's basically a 50-50 chance of, maybe not 50-50, but basically there's a chance that you can field the ball for yourself. So usually it's not in your favor to do that. Otherwise teams would do this like just all the time. So there's usually like a high chance that the other team is going to field the ball, and they're going to have like way better field position. So basically the only time you do this is like if you're down and like it's towards the end of the game and like you absolutely need like a score to win the game, or if you're the Saints and it's a Super Bowl and you just think the other team is going to expect it. But anyway,
True.
But so it's kind of like a neat comeback mechanic in football.
Yeah, it is. Probably out of the three major American sports, it's probably the most exciting of the three, because the other two are kind of boring.
I was going to mention the basketball one and how.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. But yes. Another thing too is for anyone who's not familiar with football, you might want to read into it and stuff. You'll hear one of the biggest cliches in football is, field position's everything, win the field position battle. And, you're with doing the onside kick, you're giving up the field position, you'll hear pin them back, which is, pin them on the other side of the field, and they have to go 100 yards down the field, which is, it's not easy.
Right.
But, if you do the onside kick, you're purposely giving up that advantage of, just being able to pin them back and maybe get the ball back yourself. And also, too, if the ball goes out of bounds during a kickoff, it's a penalty on the team who kicked, and then the other team gets it at the 40-yard line, which that's basically really good. So, there's a lot of risk doing an onside kick. It's basically 100% desperation, like Brad said. But if you get it, you recover, the momentum's definitely on your side, and it's definitely very exciting to watch if you actually, if it's successful. So
yeah, I can remember just a couple times where like it worked, it paid off, and like, oh my god, it's incredible.
Yep, no question.
Yeah. So pretty much every time you do it, desperation or balls of steel. So
yep. You look amazing. It's one of those things where it looks amazing when it works, and you look like an idiot when it doesn't. So
yeah. Just like going forward on a fourth down and everything. Let's get the basketball one out of the way, just because like it is an example. It's not a great example. Well, I mean it's a good example, but the mechanic itself not so great. But
yeah.
So like in basketball, like there's a shot clock, so you can basically only hold on to the ball for 24 seconds. So basically, if one team is ahead, let's say they're up 10 points, with a minute or two to go, they can basically just like hold on to the ball for their entire possession, and the other team just doesn't get enough possessions to score and win the game. So what ends up happening is to come back, they intentionally foul the team that's ahead, which forces them to shoot free throws. And hopefully they only make one or two, miss both of them or only make one. And then that forces a change in possession, and then you can, assuming they make the second one, like it's dramatic change of possession, so you can get the ball back. But it's basically you're almost giving the other team guaranteed points, but you're hoping that you can march down the floor or run down the floor. It's not football. Run down the floor and basically get more points than they are able to with their free throws.
Yes, this is what I would call a comeback mechanic that's taking advantage of the rules. It's not very interesting, but it's one of those things, and I've heard coaches talk about it, and I agree with, because I've been in competitive situations. It's it's one of those things where it's like they may not like doing it personally and everything, and it may look very horrible stylistically into the casual observer, but when your job is to win games and this is allowed to you by the rules, then you're going to do it, right? And you know, Brad and I, God knows Brad and I have plenty of examples of in our competitive days. It's like, you know, I should not attack here for 30 seconds and just not even be close to the opponent and win because of it.
Yeah.
And hey, you know what? Whatever.
Hey, I mean, that's how fighting game legend Justin Wong, that's how he made his mark. Won his first Evo by just running away with Storm, just attacking the sky and not being anywhere near the action, just running out the clock for minutes on end, and just, oh, it's terrible.
Yep. It's horrible.
But, you know, I mean, hey, it's what he should have done. It won for him. And, I mean, if Capcom made a game that rewarded that kind of behavior, I mean, that's what you're going to get. You know, it's a classic case of don't hate the player, hate the game.
And, you know, the thing about this, what Brad is describing, the free throws, you know, forcing free throws, is, you know, the NBA, the governing association of pro basketball, has said, hey, we need to probably fix this because this is not what we want our game to be. So, you know, we'll see. But right now, you know, it's legal and it's definitely a viable comeback, you know, method in basketball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's okay. They'll fix it in NBA 2, like when they reinvent. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, like, the fact that you know, Justin Wong won without Runaway Storm, that's a big reason. Like, they changed that mechanic in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Basically, with him running away, like, he would just like whiff moves to, you know, build meter, which you could use to do super moves to kind of further stall out the game. But in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, they made it so like you have to make contact, you have to block something, you have to hit something in order to build meter. So or call Morgan, but
yeah, well, if you look at, you know, Marvel 2 to Marvel 3, and then Street Fighter 3 Third Strike to Street Fighter 4, those earlier games both had the mechanic that Brad's talking about. You can just whiff normal moves to build meter, and, you know, Street Fighter 3 has the same problem with people just standing full screen with each other, just sitting there whiffing moves to build super meter, and it's like, oh man, this is so interesting, you know. And you know, to the casual observer, anybody, even, you know, me, who I know a fair amount about Street Fighter 3, I'm just like, yeah, this is kind of boring. So, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think it's the same situation in basketball. You know, it's like even people who are very familiar with the game, you know all the ins and outs of it, do not care for watching a free throw contest. Not
many people do. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So. That's you know, I think what was the third one you were going to mention? You said like the three major sports. What was baseball?
The softest one is baseball. Yeah, the softest comeback mechanic is baseball, and it's just an intentional walk, and it's very soft, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very hard to say. And then, you know, I guess even a softer one, I don't know. It's probably about the same level of comeback mechanic. It's pretty weak, but if you're the home team in baseball, you get, if it's the bottom of the ninth on, you win if you score a run. And a away team doesn't have a chance. But they're very, I think, out of all of them, it's pretty, you know, there's not a lot of comeback mechanics in baseball. Yeah. Comeback mechanic in baseball is home run or a good bullpen, depending on if you're winning or losing. So
or the crowd, you know, getting you into it. Yeah,
it's a silly game.
You know, just off the top of my head, I do think hockey has pretty good comeback mechanics. So
yeah,
I mean that's like a 5-on-5 game.
Yeah,
and so usually they play like 4 people out. Out and about, and then you have a goalie. But you know, towards the end of a game, like if someone's losing, like they'll just pull the goalie and put a fifth attacker
so awesome
on the ice. Yeah. You know, just like it's. I mean, just like playoff hockey when it's like they got the camera, the goalie. Like, are they gonna pull him? Are they gonna pull? You know, it's just you're waiting to see if he goes and if they're gonna put a fifth man on the ice, and like it's exciting. You know, it's just down.
It is, yeah.
Because like you're leaving like your net just like wide open, just like if anything goes wrong, like, and they get past the you know, they get past you, like it's a free goal for them, which is huge in hockey.
Yeah, it's not good. And I don't even know if there's a comeback mechanic in soccer. So
Oh, bribe the officials. I don't. Anyway,
sure. Yeah.
I'm allowed to make that joke because FIFA is incredibly corrupt. But
There you go.
anyway,
Yeah.
anyway. So why don't we just to kind of put a little bow on this? Why don't we talk about the opposite of comeback mechanics, which are snowball mechanics?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, basically these are basically these are. We're ahead, now let's get more ahead, and let's get more ahead, and let's get even more ahead, and let's just stomp out any hope that the other team or player is going to make any kind of comeback. And I think we can agree these, for the most part, these are not very very entertaining to watch for the audience.
Not really. Or to be on the receiving end of.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that would be fun either. But yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Did you have one?
No, I was going to let you go.
Oh, okay. The one I was going to mention was Marvel vs. Capcom 2, the predecessor to Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which I know it just blew everyone's mind. I know that's a huge revelation, but basically this was also a 3-on-3 fighting game. Where you kill one character, kill two, kill three, and then that's the game. But this didn't have X Factor, so basically once you would kill one of the characters, that would result in just them not only having that life bar, that character, but they would also lose the utility from having that extra character. So basically you would have assists. Normally you'd be able to call that character as an assist, and he'd be able to help out during the fight, even if he's not on the field or whatever we call it. But if you actually kill that character, then that's kind of the wheels coming off at that point.
Yeah, I thought you were actually going to mention guard breaks when.
Yeah, that definitely qualifies. Yeah,
but Marvel 2 was a great game. I'm glad you mentioned that about Marvel 2 because I have a snowball mechanic that's in the lieu of the Marvel style. It's actually in a Street Fighter game called Street Fighter Alpha 3, and there's a snowball mechanic, quite literally, that's called. I'm sure people have heard of, and maybe not, but there's a concept in fighting games that's called an infinite combo.
Oh,
and essentially what happens is you're hitting this combo, and if the person doing the combo does it correctly, it never stops, right? They can just keep on doing it, to infinity. Well, in Alpha 3, in Street Fighter Alpha 3, there's certain characters that if you hit a certain combo, they can do what's called a crouch cancel infinite, which you don't need to know. It's getting way too technical, but basically you can just do one move over and over and over, and you just timed out opponents, right? So that's quite literally the definition of a snowball mechanic, because you've got one hit done. And what happens is there's a mode in Street Fighter Alpha 3 that allows you to do custom combos, which a real quick explanation of that is you activate it, you get the shadows on you, and then you can combo like your normal punches and kicks a certain way that you wouldn't be able to outside of that mode. Well, what happens is you did these infinites at the end of those combos, and you also always started the round with 100% gauge, so you could just do it immediately and it was over. So
that's fantastic.
Now I didn't get into.
So why isn't this game played anymore?
Brad, you're really going to enjoy this, and people who've played older fighting games, you're going to love this, and you'll know this too. But yeah, these were only accessible to the 2-player side for whatever reason. The 1st-player side couldn't do it. So good work, Capcom. Anyway, so that, to me, that's like number one snowball mechanic, something like that, where you have no hope of getting out of it. I can't imagine why people don't like that game.
Right.
Yeah, it's stuff like that, like infinite combos in fighting games are 100% snowball.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely, and
depending on what pro player or players you talk about in Heroes of the Storm, some maps are more snowbally than others.
Oh, definitely.
So,
Blackheart's Bay.
Yeah, Blackheart's Bay.
Cursed Hollow.
I've read a lot Tomb of the Spider Queen is just a lot of people think that once you get going on that, it's game over. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
Yeah, I don't. I think other maps are more.
Blackheart's Bay to me is the number one. Like, well, it's over.
Yeah, pretty much.
The map mechanic in that is very powerful. So.
Yeah. Which I mean, in that game, like destroying structures, like gives you experience, which helps you get a lead. So, basically, if you can secure the map objective and give this old pirate captain Blackheart some coins, which you gather up from the map. You win a fight, give him coins. You've won the fight. You're ahead as a result of that. You give them the coins, they blow up structures, and that puts you even more ahead. And then the other team is just, they basically have like no way to come back, really.
Yeah, and the structure of that map is it might be, in my opinion, it is, out of all the maps in the game, it's very much, you can avoid team fights very easily. You can, there's not a lot, you basically have to really force the action if you're losing. And, as Brad said, if you've got the coins, you've got the experience, it keeps on going, it's going to be, you're like, oh, wow, we just lost because, we haven't done really anything, and they've destroyed all our structures, gained all this XP, so on and so forth. You're in a big hole quick in that map, for sure.
Yep. You just group up and play a nice game of Death Ball, 5-man Death Ball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah, and one more, and this is the last example I wanted to mention, which I can do because I've already angered the Quake 3 community enough, so can keep doing it. And plus, I just threw a game I played for 10 years, more of Capcom 2 under the bus, so I can certainly do that with Quake 3, but I mean Quake 3, I really feel like that's a huge example of snowball mechanics too. So I mean, this is it's a first-person shooter, and we're most talking one-on-one mode here, dueling. But it's like once you're able to like get that first kill, then you can start establishing map control. So, then you can, grab the mega health to, give you far more health than the other person is going to have when they respawn after you kill them.
Yeah.
Great job. Then you go grab armor. And so, like, basically, once you get that first kill, you get to, basically go around the map, grab all these items, grab all the weapons, and just really fortify yourself as, just this absolute beast. And, like, basically, like, you're in total control. Like, you have a huge advantage at that point. And there's really no way for the other player to get back into it. And that's why, to me, that's, like, the number one thing I think that's hurt, kind of competitive, or competitive, and also kind of like casual viewing of Quake 3 and these other kind of arena shooters.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I didn't play it competitively, but I've played enough Quake 3 in my day to, everyone's probably been on the receiving end of that. And
yeah, it's not fun. It's really not fun.
that's a good point. Yeah, I feel like certain FPSs, it's just like, you get the sense of hopelessness pretty easily. It's just like, there's nothing I can do. I'm just dead, just feeding, completely. Right, there's nothing I can do. This is not a very competitive example, but the thing I think about was I played a ton of Modern Warfare 2, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 in college, and that they have a perk system that as you get more kills, you get access to these different upgrades. Like you can get like a Harrier jet can come by and shoot people and kills. Well, the way that it worked in that game was that any kills that your perk got counted towards your total kill count to get more perks, right? So you could just you could get like there was obvious perks to take in a line to get, right? And then they just add up. And then when you get 25 kills in a row in that game, you get your ultimate perk. And then one of those was a nuke that it went off and you just won the game. So like, you could sit there and play, and there's one guy who's really good, gets 25 kills, done. It's like, match is over in 2 minutes. This is like, why am I playing this?
Yeah.
But, that's definite snowball. And they removed that in later games. They took away the perks counting towards your kill streak because it was way too good. But I have to say that game was so much fun because there was so much broken stuff in that game.
Right.
I love
probably fun stuff. If you're the one who's snowballing, but
oh yeah, No question. Yeah. There's no doubt. But yeah, that's a snowball that. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me to hear that they're kind of trying to remove that.
I removed it from the game. So.
Yeah. I mean, snowballing, I think for the most part is definitely something you want to avoid. I mean, even it seems like most rules are kind of designed to either incentivize comebacks or at least prevent snowballing. Kind of, yeah, like in football, it's like once you score, you kick the ball to the other team, like you give them the ball. Now they have a chance to score. Like if it was like you score and then like you were rewarded for that, like you get the ball again. Like I mean, like the game would be ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be some sort of competitive balance, right? Because it's just if someone just was like, oh, you won the first opening whatever round or whatever game, it's like, oh, you just can continue to win. It's just like, well, not really much point of playing a competitive game.
You'd have Quake 3 if you did that. Anyway,
you never got to play the game. It's just like, oh, am I playing against Zero and Marvel 3? Anyway,
yeah.
We're not bitter though. So.
Oh god, that little Maverick Hunter ended my Marvel career. So.
Yeah, well, you're not the only one. A lot of people.
Yep. That's that little. That character was the definition of snowballing. So it's like once he gets that kill, or once he gets a hit, he kills the first character, and then the second character comes in, and then he has like incoming mix-ups. So it's like you're at a disadvantage when you're coming in. So like he's likely to land that hit on a second character, and then on etc. I
think to kind of tie it all up, we talked about comeback mechanics earlier on, and if they feel weak, then they just don't even feel like they should be there. But on the flip side, if they're too powerful, it's just like, wow, what's the point of even having momentum established?
Yeah. Well, what's the point of winning if like you're so much more powerful coming back?
Like a comeback mechanic with, some amount of snowball. Snowballing is, I don't know. I feel like snowballing is probably a little bit easier to see. Like, it's probably a little bit easier to balance because it's just like, oh, well, yeah, obviously if we just did this.
Right.
And the comeback mechanic is, there's a lot of shades of gray, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
In my opinion. Not from a game developer point of view, but from, someone who's played games with multiple comeback mechanics over the years. I mean, I think, I don't know. I think a lot of people like the idea of snowball mechanics in theory because they're like, yeah, I want to win more. I'm benefiting winning, and then the first time you're on the other side of it, it's like, man, this is totally stupid. So, I think comeback mechanics, if they're done really well, it's great because it adds a lot of interest to the game. A lot of life, a lot of reason to keep playing it. While snowball mechanics, if they're too powerful, it kills the game pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
So
it makes the game boring for the audience, and
exactly, yeah. We all care about viewership now. So
yeah,
that's what we want.
Yeah, and it's also going to make it boring for the people playing it too. The people on the receiving end of a snowballing, they're going to tune out once that ball gets rolling, and probably the people who are snowballing, like it's probably fun for a while, but I think it would kind of get boring after a while. Just
Agreed. Yeah.
Once it gets going, it's like, all right, we win again. Yawn. Don't really have to pay attention for the rest of the match.
The autopilot, as you said.
Yep.
No question.
Yep. All right, so that was our discussion on comeback mechanics. A couple things to wrap up real quick. Iron Galaxy is indeed the developer of Killer Instinct. They're also the developers of Dive Kick. I was thinking they were the developers of Skullgirls, but it's actually Dive Kick. So, gotta get my indie fighting game developer straight. So, there you go. Before we go, we did mention that internally, Heroes of the Storm was referred to as a hero brawler by Blizzard, and I actually found the clip that we were referring to with the Lost Vikings referring to the game as a hero brawler, and it's pretty hilarious, so let's play that right now.
17 years of nothing, and they bring us back for a MOBA. Ha, figures.
It's not the MOBA, it's a hero brawler! Hero brawler, Herver Hebe, you made that up!
Nope, but Blizzard sure did.
Ugh, you guys are so getting us fired. Do you know that?
That is outstanding. There's no way that it's not in the top 5 just best things ever. Anyway, that is going to do it for us this week. We'll be back next week with a new episode. Until then, thank you for listening, and take care.